Hey, dreamers, and welcome to Dreamers Unite. So, this is a special series. This is the Activate Your Voice series. Um, it's just important right now that everything that's going on in this world, from the protests that are happening to the pandemic that we're, trying to come out of, it's important that we use our voice to evolve, to get to the next level, to find solutions to these huge problems that are happening in our community. So I want to be a part of that conversation. I want Dreamers Unite to be a part of this important conversation. So I have a young lady on today. She's going to kick off this series. Her name is Moriah Dowd, and I am honored. She is also a friend of my daughter's, Gaia. Shout out, Gaia, to you.
Shout out to Gaia.
Yeah. So let me just tell you a little bit about Moriah, and why I decided to kick this Activate Your series off with her, because she is passionate. She is a leader. She's a filmmaker. She is from the South Side of Chicago. She's a native there, and she had the guts to live her dream and come to NYU. That it was her, or is, or one of your dreams, right, Mariah, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
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 To go to NYU. She's now graduated. She is using her voice as a filmmaker and as a person that's concerned about her community and wanting to make change and wanting to make a difference. And this show, again, is all about solutions, this series. How can we do it? How can we get there? And we want to explore that together. So, Mariah,
Thank you. That
welcome.
that introduction was just,
Uh,
everything.
I am glad, because it was definitely from the heart. It wasn't planned.
Felt that. I felt that.
Yeah. First of all, we spoke briefly yesterday,
Yes.
and she's also going to be on Dreamers Unite with SHERRI Pullum, the talk show for dreamers. She is going to be on that show too. But I just thought it was important after our conversation to really focus on what is happening right now, because we're all in a lot of pain,
Right.
and it's a lot of trauma going on.
Yes.
And you have used your artivist spirit and your activist sensibility and just your humanness, I want to say, to want to make a change in your community. So tell me about, you've been a part of many protests in Chicago. Tell me what that's been like for you. And you also said to me that there's been quite a bit of misinformation.
Yeah. I, like a lot of other people, after, well, one, I didn't watch the video of George Floyd, but after hearing about the story and reading about it, I was like, okay, I'm upset. And, this is not long after Ahmaud Arbery, not long after Breonna Taylor. And I'm like, okay, this is all going on. And then I think also something about being in the quarantine while all of this is happening and having no choice but to just really focus on what's going on has affected us. And I just was like, okay, like, when's the protest? I'm going. Like, emotions were high. So that first few days, there were a lot of protests, and then we had like a big protest last Saturday in Chicago, downtown Chicago. So I decided to go out there because emotions were high, and I was like, I don't know what we're going to do about this, but something needs to be done now, and everybody's stance needs to just be made clear right now. So I went out to the protests, and I've been to a lot of protests, just coming up as a city kid, and then also leaving and going to New York. Um, I've been to a lot of large protests, so I was like, okay, this is how I show my support. I go, and the solidarity was actually amazing to see, because we got off the train, and immediately it's just like every single street downtown is blocked off with like cars. Like there are people who are just in their cars protesting with their Black Lives Matter signs on the sides of their cars. And like we really shut down downtown, which was cool because, you know, everybody can't necessarily be outside during the pandemic. So to see the caravan protest, so I thought that was an amazing idea. And then after that, we joined the in-person protest, where we actually shut down Lakeshore Drive, which is like a major highway along the lakeshore, like the prettiest highway in Chicago. But it was healing, I would say, because we all came together and we were sort of just, I don't know, like there, like when there was nothing to say, you could just feel like, okay, I see you. And that was really important. As time went on, we got to one point in the protest where the police, they weren't trying to let us through for whatever reason. And things got a little violent. I mean, not even a little violent, a lot. And at that point, you know, there was tear gas, there were rubber bullets, like, you know, we've all seen it. But after a while, I was realizing a few things. One, there were white like allies at the protest that, you know, we appreciate the support and their presence there. But at one point, I feel like the message got lost. Like nobody was chanting about Black lives, but then there were just there was like a bunch of destruction. It's like, okay, like, I don't know how to navigate this because I'm here for George Floyd. I'm here for Breonna Taylor. But it was just interesting to see like the people that are supposed to come and just sort of be bodies that are supporting and taking up space with us, take a more, I guess, take a leadership role or take initiative. And we're like, wait, like this isn't necessarily what we're doing. So that part was a little bit chaotic. And, you know, it was a lot. Like we had to, you know, I had friends that were finding people with like water and milk and getting the tear gas out of people's eyes. You know, there's people wrapping people up with gauze, like there's blood everywhere. At one point, this one guy comes up to us and lets us know, like he sees something on his phone, some sort of alert that the mayor is going to, not even necessarily the mayor, but the police department is going to shut down the downtown area and like we'd all be trapped. And at the moment we were like, that doesn't really make sense. Like to be trapped downtown, there are so many different ways to get out. And by that time that he had told us, we had already been trapped. So we didn't know. Yeah, so that became a whole situation, walking all around downtown trying to find the right exit to find the car. I mean, we walked for hours. All train service had been suspended. Like there was no way to leave. And then they instated this curfew and told us 30 minutes before. So there was just a lot going on.
And how did you navigate your way through the fear to stay calm? And I'm sure you must have seen many people not stay calm.
Yeah.
But how did you navigate through that?
You know, I don't even completely know how I navigated it. I think sometimes when we're placed in certain situations, you just have to rely on your body to do what it does. And at that moment, I mean, I actually told Gaia this, but at that moment I was sort of dissociating at points. And when I sort of like got away from the crowd, I stood to the side by myself just to think, because I'm like, I'm not really processing in real time what's happening. Things are just happening. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to process this later. When I had a moment to just stand and really just think, I was spacing out, and then I thought it was okay. I was just thinking about things, and then one of my friends comes up to me and she hugs me, and that's when I realized that wasn't okay. I was like,
Wow,
"Oh
that
my
gives
god."
me goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah. She was like, "Oh, this," and all she said was, "This is a lot." And I said, "Yeah." And we just hugged for a few minutes, and that's when I was like, "Okay. Yeah, like I have a lot of feelings, but I don't really have the language for it right now." Um
And where do you think the misinformation came, in terms of what people were saying on social media, you mentioned, what was being said
yes.
in the news?
I think there have been just a bunch of varying stories and just like information that's being put out there. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So we have different, like for the protests, first of all, we have multiple organizations in Chicago that are in the fight for justice and equality. So even at the protests, I'm like, okay, there are multiple protests going on, even though we're supposed to sort of be in one protest, which was interesting to see. And then also on social media, that's a whole different thing because basically there was one specific moment. It was Blackout Tuesday. There was this hashtag that was started, and it really started with the music industry, and them being like, oh, we're not doing business on this Tuesday, like in honor of Black Lives Matter. Then it became this thing where you post a black square. I'm pretty sure you might have seen it.
Yeah.
Post a black square on social media for solidarity. And I think that was a big moment where everybody realized we weren't on the same page because people were hashtagging it Black Lives Matter. And because of that, all of the information, like the imperative information that people were using the hashtag to sort of get exposed, that was all just blacked out with black squares. So it actually harmed more than helped. But it's like people are trying to show solidarity, like people are attempting to make their stance known. So we were like, okay. And these were, the people that most of the people that I saw were people that had been speaking out and, were a part of the movement, but there was just some miscommunication there. And, everyone's arguing like, why would you post these black squares? What does that even mean? And then, which, they were right. But I was like, okay, like, we can condemn each other all we want or talk
Yeah.
about how ineffective this is, but how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? How do we make sure that this is not an often occurrence?
Right. And I think, though, you said it right. I mean, people just want, I know Gaia, I remember her saying to me, hey, this is people are posting, but make sure you don't post with the Black Lives Matter hashtag because it's,
Yeah,
so I feel like people want to have their voice in it and to be involved in some kind of way. But
yeah,
I also think that we don't know what we don't
right,
know. So how do you think
yeah,
that a student from NYU, like let's just take NYU for instance, one of the most prestigious schools in the world, and certainly Tisch being one of the most prestigious uh,
mhm.
artistic schools in the world. How do you think that NYU can be a catalyst? How do you think that you could be a catalyst? How do you think that corporations can be a catalyst
NYU
for change, I should
for
say,
change.
catalyst for
I
change?
would, well, I think number one, with NYU, as this large institution, and also NYU is a large corporation in itself. Um, One, I think it starts at home. That's one thing I was thinking about. We're all sort of we've been thrust into this revolution, but what's coming up, it seems, is everything is rising to the surface in every little, just in every area. There were so many women on Twitter sharing not even just women, but there were so many people on Twitter sharing their experiences of sexual assault during this whole thing, and everything, like, it's just like everything is being dealt with right now, and being brought to the forefront. And what that tells me is, oh, okay, in order to be a part of the revolution just has to start within. It starts with you. So I would say for NYU, they should look at the ethics of their programs. They should look to their Black students and listen to them and let them run things and let them be in positions of power. I think that's where it starts. Also with NYU owning so much property in New York, okay, how are they using that to be of service to the community? There's so much going on with the protests in New York right now. How can they use their privilege and their money to
Yes.
aid the revolution? Because that's going to be a really big thing for us. I mean, we see like all of these different funds for bailing people out or feeding people or helping people pay back rent during a time where we have COVID-19 and we're in this revolution. And, a byproduct of this revolution is like a lot of things get destroyed. And, people need resources.
Yes.
As a $1 billion institution, you have a responsibility to the people. You can't necessarily, and a lot of corporations that are like, we stand with the Black Lives Matter movement, or we're showing our solidarity. And it's like, the way that you show your solidarity as a corporation is to use like whatever privilege you have to like use it for the greater good. So yeah, I'm just like, you have to put your money where your mouth is, especially as a corporation.
Yes. Can I say yes? And can I say more yes? Yeah, I think that, like you said, you have to start looking within
Yeah.
and start committing some dollars,
Yeah.
not just speaking
Right.
or just posting. Let's face it, we know what the makeup is of
Right.
NYU, and it's not mostly Black and brown people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, as you say, how do we get our white allies, as they are calling themselves as well?
Yeah.
Um, how do we make them understand that? How can you translate that privilege, not just in speaking about, hey, I'm privileged, I know there's disparity here, but how
Right.
can we get them? What can we do to help these students, to help the faculty, to help the administration understand? I'm just taking NYU for instance because
Yeah.
both you and Gaia went there, and I'm a parent of a student that
Yeah.
went to NYU.
Yeah. Um, one of my friends this morning said something really powerful, I feel like, about allyship. And he said, being an ally is not something you proclaim yourself to be. It's something that is earned. And then the people within the community deem you an ally because of your actions. And I was like, yeah, I guess like that's true. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about it like that, or I hadn't had the language to really articulate that. But yeah, I think the way that the institution could get involved is simply by saying, look, one, we know that we don't have all the answers. So one, we have to reach out to our community within our institution of Black folks. We have to do it. And then what comes with that is you have to be willing to be held accountable. And that's where the work is. It's holding them accountable. It's them being diligent and listening and acting. I think a lot of people think that sometimes it's just this very elaborate process. But honestly, all we want you to do is listen. And I would say to the students there, don't let up. The way we scream, no justice, no peace in the streets, no justice, no peace in the institution until, we're heard. Yeah.
Yeah, until you're heard and change is happening,
Right.
right? And
Exactly.
now we're at the point now where we know it's not enough just to be heard.
Yeah. It's not enough.
Something has to be done. And I love the way you also said that a solution starts internally. It
Right.
starts looking in individually, and then it also starts looking inward, whether you're a corporation, whether you're an organization, and whatever institution,
Yeah.
it starts look in.
Exactly, because I mean, you can't dismantle a system if you haven't dismantled the ways that you feed into that system yourself or within your corporation or organization. You can't dismantle anything if you're still operating on those grounds.
Right? If you still have the same mindset.
Right.
Yeah, if you still have the same mindset. So speaking of mindset,
Yes.
we talked a little bit about your dad and both
Yes.
having similar opinions, obvious,
Yeah.
but you feel more hopeful in this revolution and in this movement. And he
Yeah.
feels like, what? I've seen it. I've been there. I've been chased by police.
Right.
I've had some things happen to me, your dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That day after the protest, I was talking to my parents, and he was actually, because there were some riots that broke out, I'm pretty sure everywhere, but in Chicago the day after the protest, it just broke out like across many, almost all neighborhoods and suburbs. And he was like, okay, like I get the outrage, but like what are we going to really do? Like, and I was like, well, Dad, like until Black Lives Matter, um, there just won't be any rest. There won't be any peace. And he said to me, he was like, but Moriah, Black lives won't matter. And I'm like, okay. I know why he thinks that. You know, he's like, I've been harassed by police my whole life. He was coming up during stop and frisk. He was coming up under all of these different crime bills. He was, a young Black man in Chicago, and was sometimes in neighborhoods that people didn't feel like he was supposed to be in. And, having a lifetime of struggle in that way, and a lifetime of distrust, and having to sort of resort to survival, um, I could understand how he could be jaded
Mm.
during the movement. Like, you've seen riots happen before, and then we're back here. But I think that's why it's so important, um, that young people be, um, just heavily invested in the movement, because I mean, because we haven't experienced as much, I think that's also a strength. Like, we can use the history of what happened before, and we can take that and just use it to fuel just new ideas, and give ourselves a new sense of hope. Um, but yeah, I feel like generationally there is some sort of gap when it comes to hope. Like, obviously my grandparents are like, this is a mess, but they lived through having to go through the back doors and
That's
go
right.
to, colored bathrooms and things
That's
like
right.
that. So to them, it's not even like they've seen it all before. So I get it, but I think that it's important to have faith. It's important to be hopeful, because faith is going to be the vehicle of action and of change. We can't do anything that we don't believe in. So yeah, I just can't allow myself to believe that we can't do anything to change things.
I agree, because if we can't, then what would be the purpose? What would be the
Yeah.
point? I mean,
Yeah.
we're already defeated
Right.
before we even start. If we
Exactly.
felt that it would never come, then
Yeah.
it won't.
Right.
It won't.
So true.
ultimately.
Yeah.
Did your father listen to you? Were you able to expand his perspective?
I think a little bit, like he'll listen to me, um, and he'll admire the fact that I'm able to be optimistic. But I'm pretty sure he still has the same point of view. He's just like, that's good, baby.
Yeah, you go, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what though? It is a steady drumbeat.
right,
It's a steady drumbeat that you
right.
for young people, because really you guys are inheriting
Yeah,
all of this,
all of it.
all of it. But what
Yeah,
I love is I think if we're paying attention, um, that to the young people, that you guys are out here, you're not playing.
yeah,
And we know historically that sometimes, or most times, for our voices to be heard, it does have to get ugly,
yeah,
right? Because as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. It's true.
right,
If you're not
right.
loud enough, then you're not. But however, we also don't want to tear up our own communities. We
Mm-hmm.
also don't want to tear down ourselves in trying to,
Ourselves.
yeah, yeah, um, in trying to help. We don't want to harm and damage ourselves because we do have to, like you said, we have to be this place of hope, a place
Yeah,
of refuge, a place where people can
yeah,
come to and our people can come to, that's that we can trust each other. We have that responsibility to one another.
yeah. I think for sure, like, also another thing that's giving me hope is even after the riots, because in a way, I think at first when the riots broke out, I had a more visceral reaction because I'm like, oh my God, this is going on everywhere right this second. And I want to go to the grocery store right now. But, after just thinking on it and like even, trying to like piece together what I had even just seen in the riots the day prior, I was just like, okay, this outrage at the end of the day is going to do something. Is it a byproduct of the revolution that some things are going to have to be destroyed? Yes. And like things we love, I mean, there are Black businesses that we love. I'm like, what did they do to y'all?
Yeah.
But what gives me hope is soon as everything was destroyed and demolished, we were right back there picking up the pieces of our communities. We were right back there cleaning up, making sure that we source all of these resources, groceries, toiletries, medicines, all these things you can get for free in Chicago right now, just because the people of the communities are just making sure that people receive the things that they need. Families are getting their rent paid. People are starting all types of donation funds. They had suspended all train and bus service. People were transporting people. I see that New York is taking on that model right now too.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, like we actually do have each other.
We have
Like, yeah. And it's like we see these riots and people burning things down on the news, but I'm like, oh, we need to also see that people are building themselves back up
yes.
and quickly.
Yes.
And that's what's giving me hope. I'm like, there's so much action around just keeping each other, like, sustaining each other, and I'm like, I love that. There's so many people even during the protests and during the riots where they're like, okay, or even social media activism, they're like, okay, everybody, I get that you want to be active, but this is how you take care of yourself through all of this. We're in it for the long haul. We're not going to, deplete ourselves of all of our energy, which is important. So
Hmm.
everybody has a role, and I think everybody's doing such a good job at just filling that role and making sure that people are healthy and um, yeah, just sustaining themselves during this revolution. Things are already mentally and emotionally heavy, and we know that those things still do affect our body and like
That's right.
everything. So yeah, I have hope.
Yeah, and well, listen, we are grateful and blessed to see that our young people have hope. And I
Yeah,
think, I have hope, and I know some
yeah,
of my friends that have hope. Um,
yeah.
so let's talk about the hope that how you're using your gifts. Because I don't want to close this out. We have
Right.
to talk about your your mission in Black is Good, which I love that. I love the name of
Thank you.
your website, which I'm sure will eventually turn into a full-grown organization. We're going to talk
Mm,
about ways that that can happen, certainly
yes,
offline.
yes,
But Black is Good,
yeah,
and I'm so proud of our folks. Because, like
yes,
you said, there's some good, we don't want to buy into too that we're only out here just destroying.
exactly.
Because we are also out here community building.
Yeah,
So powerful that
yeah,
that people are taking care of each other. We're looking out for one another. I don't know how many phone calls I'm
right.
making, people are making to us. We're like, hey sister, you okay? Brother, you okay?
Exactly.
What's
Yeah,
happening? We love you. We love you. And we're showing one another that we love each other, that
yes,
we're willing also in donating and giving money. And we want to make sure too that that money is going to the right place
right.
and it's being used for what the purpose, its intended purpose is.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Black is Good, because that idea really came about trying to be this hub, right? That you talked about,
Yes.
you and your group of organizers
Hmm.
and colleagues and friends
Yes.
wanted to start a place where you could make sure that funds are appropriately being used, a place where people could get information because there is so much misinformation. So tell us
Yeah.
about Black is Good.
Yeah. So Black is Good. Had this idea actually on the Blackout Tuesday day where everyone was confused about what was going on online. And I was like, yeah. And then after in coming days, I was like, oh, okay, like there is so much, like I can't count the number of stories that I've seen that people come back and say, oh, like actually that wasn't right. Like, oh, actually, this is what actually happened. And I'm like, okay, we're all on our personal social media pages, just blasting information. And that's great because there's a lot of truth and a lot of really valuable resources in the midst of that. But the downside is you get everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I want Black is Good as a publication to be like a filter. So we're going to take that information and just like funnel it down to like what we need. Um, and I started it off thinking about the Chicago defenders' role in the Great Migration, and how that really pushed that for Black people, how they knew, where to go and what was going on during that. That facilitated a lot of people making their move up north. And I was like, oh yeah, like they were the source. And I'm like, do we have a source that we can come to be like, okay, what protests are going on, or what initiatives are happening, or where can I donate to that's credible?
Yeah.
What are organizations doing in this city? Even, I've been seeing so many people that are, accepting uh, donations for food and giving them out to families, or even transporting resources to families. And I'm like, oh, okay, like a single mother of three is probably not scrolling through a 24-year-old's Instagram story right now. But how can we, amplify that information and make sure that, people get what they need? And that's where the idea came from. It started with just resources. And I was like, okay, we can have a list of cities and we can basically just have also like lists of Black businesses that you can support in that city, just a bunch of information. But then as I assembled a team, it became this initiative to have news that is completely um, I don't know, just filtered by us, like for us, by us. I
Yeah,
can't turn on CNN and know everything that's happening in the community. We already know that people are protesting and rioting. We already know like what the politicians think and what their politics are. What is going on in the community?
that's right.
So
That's right.
yeah, so I'm just like, okay, well, yeah, we can have open letters from people on the ground. We can have um, articles and headlines. We can have even art, and because what does this revolution sound like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I want to be able to amplify that too, and you know um, give a platform to the people on the ground because they're doing the work and they're pushing everything on their personal social media pages. But I'm like, okay, how can we just have all of this information in one publication where people can know, okay, I go to Black is Good and I'm gonna get everything I need there. So yeah.
Right. And so you have a strategy of how
Yes.
you want to sort of roll this out.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes. So in 2 weeks, we're gonna release a prototype just so that just because the information and the resources, that's time sensitive. You know, um, people are in need right now. So we
Yep.
want to at least have a place people can go. And then after that, we have a team of web designers who are building the site from scratch. And the actual Black is Good website and app will be up within the next 2 months. So I'm excited about that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of outreach to organizations and people and activists. But it's so necessary and so worth it, I feel.
Oh, it's definitely worth it. So how can people help? How can they get involved if, they're watching right now? Where can they go while it's not up, but you do need some funds? And
Yes.
um, I'm definitely
Yes.
donate, but and encourage donations here at Dreamers Unite. I make that commitment to you right now.
Wow.
Not going to go back on
Thank
my
you.
word on that. Yeah,
Thank you.
Dreamers Unite, and I know my team. I'm going to speak for them. Team, I'm speaking for you right now. We're going to make that commitment where we're going to
Yes.
be doing some things too, because really that's what this platform is all about.
Yes.
Is to network, to help,
Yes.
to bring about dreams, to bring about
Yes.
change, to bring about solutions. And we
Yes.
certainly, like I said, we can't be reaching goals and dreams out here when we're not even on a fair playground.
Yes.
We're not
That's
even at,
true.
we're not even in the sandbox sometimes.
Exactly.
So how can we support? Where would we
Yes.
go to even contribute money? Where
Yes.
can we find out more information?
Yes.
So as people want to hear about this and they get excited,
Right.
where can they go?
So, for now, we've set up a Cash App. We're gonna set up a PayPal account. And it is, I'll give the written version to you as well, but cash tag We Are Black is Good. And you can find any information on my social media. I'm Moriah Dowd on Instagram. I post a lot of social things on there and resources, but also I'm posting about Black is Good. Um, and that's, well, I have a Twitter as well. You can also find me on Twitter, _Moriah Dowd. But yeah, we are going to start our own social media pages. We just had to get things solidified with the graphic designers, making sure we have the right visual language and know what Black is Good looks like and what's legible to the people.
Yeah.
But now that we've gotten past that, we're like, okay, full speed ahead. We can start our social media pages. So yes, and within this next 2 weeks, the prototype site will be up. So
I am so proud of you, Mariah. Really.
Thank you.
Like I said to you, it's a privilege to know a young lady with such a brilliant mind and such a vision for a future, not only for herself, because we're also in a culture right now where we become a little narcissistic, especially technology and our cell
Right.
phones and selfies and all of it,
Sure.
all of it. It becomes almost consuming at times, but it's really refreshing to witness your journey and
Right.
to witness that sort of evolution too of you and Gaia being in school together and just watch you blossom and grow. My gosh, what a gift. I want to just live long enough to see it all that you guys are going to be doing and creating. Please, God, please.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, all I've been doing is, I'm just a student of life, right? And like, I'm like, okay, what can I do, at every given moment in my life? What can I do to be of service, to the community? What can I do for other people? Because at the end of the day, that's what fulfills me. Um, but yeah,
And that's what true
just playing my part.
is all about. It really is service.
Yeah,
Really, any invention,
yeah,
any idea, really, it's really providing a service for someone,
yeah,
right? You're fulfilling a need. You have something
yes,
valuable to offer. Um,
yes.
well, I have to, before we close, we have to talk about the incredible filmmaker you are. And how do you want to use your filmmaking to amplify the movement and the revolution? How do you want to use that and to like you said, every movement and revolution has a sound, it has a
Yeah,
rhythm, it has a message.
yeah.
What's your message through film?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, with Black is Good becoming this platform, in the same way that a lot of publications have a space for docuseries. Like, you can go on the New York Times website and they have New York Times documentaries, and they'll be short series. We'll be able to do that, but it'll be content for us by us, which I'm excited about because I have a lot of ideas and I know a lot of people who are also filmmakers. And I'm like, okay, some of these I will execute, but some of these ideas I can give to other people and like get other filmmakers working, which is the goal. I need everybody working. But yeah, that. And then also, I've been working on a documentary myself, just thinking about how our communities are rebuilding themselves, and specifically focusing on the community in Chicago, right? I had already sort of started conceptualizing a different documentary that seems to be connected. And actually, it's funny, we were talking about my dad because this was our idea together to focus on his family, and how they migrated to Chicago and how they
Mm,
have this typical story of going through redlining and segregation in Chicago, because Chicago is the most segregated city in the US, actually. And how his grandparents experienced things, and then how just looking at our family generationally to now as a microcosm for the typical Black Chicago story, and seeing how like the effects of all of these different things that were put in place in Chicago, how the effects are just very much alive today, and how that manifests itself. Because I believe that we have to look at the past, and then we also have to um, see how the past informs the present in order to envision our future,
that's right.
right? So that's what I wanted to do. But now that all of these Black communities have to build themselves back up, because, you know, let's be honest, corporations aren't going to build up Black and brown neighborhoods on the south and west sides of Chicago at the
Mm,
same rate that they're going to rebuild the downtown loop.
that's right.
seeing all of these initiatives and seeing how, you know, there are organizations and groups like, okay, let's clean up. Oh, let's set up a free store. Oh, let's give this out. And all of these different community initiatives. I'm like, somebody needs to be documenting this. Like somebody needs to document. We've never had a chance to really document what it looks like to build Black business that caters to the community's needs from the ground up. And I would love to track their process and progress through film.
Oh, that is exciting. That is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. Moriah Dowd. And I know why you're doing it.
Right.
It's from your heart. But I definitely can see something even greater than you even know that's coming your way and coming to pass. I
Wow.
can definitely see for you, not that you're looking for this super stardom or fame, but I definitely can see people gathering around you and coming to support you. And I'll be one of
Mm,
those big fans and cheerleaders for you.
thank you.
So your vision for a greater good and really ultimately a greater world.
Yeah.
Because as you said, we have to look at and learn from the past so we don't repeat our same mistakes.
Right.
Also, we can look at our victories too, because there's a lot of victory in there.
Exactly.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
victory. And
Yeah.
you don't grow. A friend of mine, she said this to me too. You know, when you're birthing something,
Mm,
right? You go through contraction. When I think of giving birth, right, and the contractions,
right.
um, and don't let anybody fool you. It is painful. Okay, it's painful, but you can make it through. It is.
Yes.
It's that. It's really we're going through a contraction. She said it so beautifully. We're going through
That's
a
good.
contraction to give birth to something beautiful,
I love that.
something that matters.
Wow.
Going through
Yes.
the contraction to give birth. So the pain is good too. The
Pain
pain,
is
we
good.
have to embrace that pain, but we do have to hunker down and
Yeah.
breathe through it, and
Yeah.
and we need that support, and we have to hold on to one another. And
Yes.
you're going to be the one telling that story, and you're going to show us even more and reveal, and that can be used as a model.
Mm,
And there are so many models of people doing it, but
yeah.
we don't necessarily see it.
Right.
So thank you, Moriah.
Thank you.
You have been incredible. I can't wait to have you on again. You're going to come on again with Dreamers Unite with Sherri Pullum. We're going to talk more
Of
about
course.
film side is and um,
Yes.
a little bit more of your background and how you got to
Yeah.
NYU and all of that. But I thought really this was just so important to start our first conversation off. This
Yeah.
is for me too. Um, I want to use this platform for good,
Right. Yeah.
something that can make change and long lasting change, and not just do this about it, but be about it.
Be about it.
Be
Yes.
about it. Be the change. Be the solution and not the
Yes.
problem. Be the solution.
Yes. Well, I
Thank
want to say thank you so much also for the opportunity. Just to also be able to speak about what I'm doing. I don't think people realize how much, you know, saying things out loud makes your vision clearer. So even if I'm just explaining to you what I'm doing, I'm like getting so many ideas even from this conversation and even from you. You know, I really appreciate that.
We're affirming together because when you speak
Mm,
it into the world,
yes,
right?
that manifestation.
There you go. That manifestation. And where two or more are gathered,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You know, as
Yes.
we all come together and we all agree, and it's me, our conversation, but this goes out on the internet, people
Right.
see it, hundreds, thousands, eventually Dreamers Unite, millions, you know,
Yes. Yes.
we all can share, dream, and work together. for our greatest and our highest good. As Oprah says, I think we each are on this planet really to reveal our truest and most authentic self. And you're doing that. I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And that's our responsibility. And that's the gift that we can give to the world, is just to be authentically us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That.
So thank you. And we're going to still deep dive more, dreamers, into
Of
activating
course.
your voice. I'm going to have your dad on. We're going to have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can break down a little more of the barrier.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, listen, it's not going to be overnight. We're going to keep beating that drum, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I can't wait to have you back again, Moriah. You're
Yeah.
a gift to not only
You're a
me,
gift.
family, but to the world. Don't
Thank
you
you so
forget it.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And
No, this
dreamers,
was great.
we will see you again. Activate your voice. Activate your voice. Be the change.
Yes.
Be the change.
Be the change. Yes.